there are different types of coils of wire. For example, this is one type of coil, circular coil having several number of turns. Here all the turns possess almost same radii. That means overall the radius of this coil remains to be constant. Whereas this is once again a circular coil, but each turn has different radii. So the difference between this coil and as well as this coil is here each turn has different radii, whereas in this circular coil almost all the turns possess same radii. And we also studied about one more type of coil, that is nothing but cylindrical coil of wire known as solenoid. So this is nothing but a solenoid. Over a non-magnetic cylindrical tube, if the copper wire is wound tightly in the form of helix, then it forms a solenoid. In our last class, we studied about the solenoid in detail, and we also determined one expression for the magnetic field at a point inside the solenoid on the axis. So inside the solenoid at any point on the axis, we determine the magnetic field. Suppose if I imagine this spring itself as once again in the form of a solenoid. So only difference is here each turn is made up of copper wire. That means copper wire is wound in the form of helix. Here steel wire is wound in the form of helix. This also looks like a solenoid, but it is an air core solenoid. That means no magnetic tube is wound to wind this steel wire in the form of helix, whereas in this coil over a non-magnetic tube copper wire is wound in the form of helix. Suppose by imagining this as a solenoid, if I bend this solenoid like this in the form of a circular ring, now this is nothing but a toroid. Then what is meant by toroid? A toroid is nothing but a solenoid which is bent in the form of circular ring. So by considering this entire spring as a solenoid, if I bend this in the form of ring, then this solenoid which is bent in the form of circular ring is known as toroid. Or toroid is also defined like this: endless solenoid. Endless solenoid. Why it is called as endless solenoid? Suppose if I consider here, this is not endless solenoid. So starting point is there, ending point is there. Either I can consider this as starting point, this as ending point, or vice versa. So even this may be considered as starting, whereas this will become now ending point. But when you bend this in the form of a circular ring like this, so which is the starting point and which is the ending point? Now it is bit difficult to decide because it is a continuous ring. So that is why endless solenoid is also known as toroid. Now let us write the definition of the toroid. A solenoid bent in the form of circular ring is called toroid. Okay, or endless solenoid. Endless solenoid is also known as toroid. Now look here, this is nothing but solenoid and this is nothing but axis. On the axis inside the solenoid at one of the point, what is the magnetic field means? The magnetic field is given by B equal to mu naught I into N, where I is the current that flows through the solenoid, mu naught is the absolute permeability of free space, then N refers to number of turns per unit length, not the total number of turns. Suppose if I count the number of turns right from year to year, that means from starting point to ending point, that gives the total number of turns represented by capital N. Whereas the small n refers to number of turns per unit length, That means for every 1 meter length, suppose if I assume this as equal to 1 meter, then for every 1 meter length, how many turns of wire are present, or every unit length consists of how many turns? That is nothing but N, number of turns per unit length. Now when you bend this solenoid, then it becomes a toroid. Here I have written the diagram of the toroid. Now here let us know about this toroid. Now here the solenoid is bent in the form of a circular ring so that it becomes a toroid. These are the two ends of the wire that is wound in this toroid. What does the dotted line represents? The dotted line, which is written in the form of blue color, represents the magnetic lines of force. How will be the magnetic lines of force inside the toroid? Inside the toroid, the magnetic lines of force will be in the form of concentric circles. Look here, 1, 2. So like this we can write any number of lines of force. What about these symbols? We have written that also. Look here, current perpendicular to the plane directed inwards. Suppose if I consider this as one turn, another turn, I imagine this entire coil as equivalent to one turn, just to match the explanation with this toroid. So turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, like this. If I consider each turn, then what does these two symbol represents? It represents that the current at the top, that means at the top means here, at the top is going inwards like this, perpendicular to the plane of the board, whereas the current at the bottom, that means right from here, it is coming out like this, perpendicular to the plane of the board. Similarly, if you consider this turn, I have written this alternately. I have not written for all the turns because I don't want to jumble the figure. So let us make the appearance of the figure clear and good. So next, if I consider this turn, even for this turn I can give the same explanation. If I consider this turn, what does this represents? This represents that at the top portion, that means here, this one, this is the top portion. So the current is flowing inwards. That means the current flows like this through each turn. Here it flows like this, again here it flows like this, again here it flows like this. So at the top portion of each turn, it is found that the current is flowing inwards perpendicular to the plane, whereas at the bottom portion of each turn, the current is flowing out. That means it is coming out. So that is what we have represented. Look here, current perpendicular to the plane directed outwards. Here current perpendicular to the plane directed outwards. Perpendicular means what? Perpendicular to the plane of the figure. Perpendicular to the plane of the figure. So when we pass the current through the toroid, it is found that the magnetic field lines are in the form of concentric circle, and it is found that the magnetic field in the interior open space, suppose if I consider this as the toroid, then the magnetic field at any point in the interior open space is found to be equal to 0, almost nearly equal to 0, whereas the magnetic field at any point in the exterior open space is also equal to 0. Okay, so if I imagine this as the toroid, so this will be the point P, and we can consider one more point here. Say for example, this is the point Q. So point P and point Q lies somewhere here outside. So both at these 2 points, at the point P and at the point Q, so the magnetic field is found to be nearly equal to 0. Now what is that we have to find from this toroid? Already we determined the expression for the magnetic field at a point inside the solenoid, and it is found to be equal to B equal to mu naught In. Similarly, for a toroid, at any point inside the toroid, that means here, you choose any point. what will be the magnetic field? Either at this point, okay, or at this point, or at this point, what will be the magnetic field? For that, we have to derive an expression. Now, let us consider like this. Let n be the total number of turns. Okay, so before that, we shall write what is that we have to determine. Expression for magnetic field due to a toroid, okay. Let n be the total number of turns and small n be the number of turns per unit length of the toroid, and I is the current flowing through the toroid, and B is the magnetic field at any point inside the toroid, Okay, now we know that according to Ampere's circuital law, the line integral of magnetic field is equal to mu naught times the current enclosed by the Ampere in loop. Here what I have done means, I have written one more figure which is nothing but the cross sectional view of the toroid, same toroid. So this is sectional view of the toroid. Now observe carefully. See, this is nothing but toroid. Only thing is I have not written the turns, but I have written the symbols indicating that at the top the current is going in, that means into the plane, and at the bottom the current is coming out. That means this is one turn, second turn, third turn, fourth turn, fifth turn, like this too many turns will be there. How many turns will be there like that? N number of turns. But I represented only for few turns the direction of the current. So this is nothing but toroid. Then I imagined 3 Ampere in loop. Look here, this is 1 Ampere in loop 1 of radius R1. What is the total length of this Ampere in loop? L1. Then 1 Ampere in loop I have taken inside, okay, Ampere in loop 2, okay. Then what is its radius? Ampere in loop 2, its radius is R. And one more Ampere in loop, that is Ampere in loop 3 of radius R3, and what is its total length? Total length is L3. Then what is the total length of the Ampere in loop 2? The total length of the Ampere in loop 2 is L. Loop 1 in the interior open space, loop 2 in the interior region of the toroid, loop 3 will be in the exterior region of the toroid. All these Ampere in loop are of different radii and different length. Loop 1 will have total length L1, radius R1. Loop 2 will have total length L and radius R. I have not used the subscript here for the second Ampere in loop. Loop 3 will have radius equal to R3 and its total length is L3. Now, according to Ampere's circuital law, the line integral of magnetic field, that is B dot dl, dot product of magnetic field and the line element, is equal to mu naught times the current enclosed by the Ampere in loop. Okay. Now if I simplify this, what do I get now? That means I expand this dot product of magnetic field and the line element. So B dot dl is nothing but B into dl into cos theta is equal to mu naught IE. What is theta? Theta is the angle between B and dl. How do you consider B and dl with respect to any one of the Amperian loop? Say for example, I consider outside Amperian loop just to find the angle theta. If this is Amperian loop, this is Amperian loop 3. Okay. So if I consider small portion on this Amperian loop of length dl at the point, say for example this is the point, let us call this point as A. At the point A, so I chosen only a small portion of the Amperian loop whose length is nothing but dl. In the vector form it is vector dl. Then at this point, if I want to find the magnetic field, then what I do means I draw one tangent. The tangent drawn at the point A gives the direction of magnetic field. Remember, outside the toroid, immediately the magnetic field does not becomes equal to 0. Look here, just close to the toroid in the exterior region, immediately the field does not becomes equal to 0. As we move away, that means as we move bit far from the outer surface of the toroid, then the field goes on decreasing. At some point the magnetic field becomes equal to 0. But close to the toroid, still the field exists, but that field is very, very weak. So if B is the magnetic field and if dl is nothing but the line element, then it is found that dl and B are parallel to each other. So when dl and B are parallel to each other, then theta becomes equal to 0, because here theta is the angle between dl and B. So both are acting in the same direction and they are parallel to each other. So therefore, if I substitute for theta is equal to 0, then what do I get now? I get this as B. I take this B outside the integration sign, B dl cos 0 equal to mu naught IE. Okay. Then B cos 0 is 1. What is integral of dl? Use the basic formula. Integral of dx is x. Integral of dy is y. Similarly, integral of dl, what does the circle represent? The circle represents the integration over a closed surface. So, line integral of magnetic field now finally turns out to be equal to B into L. Cos 0 is 1. So, it is equal to 1. This is equal to mu naught into IE. So, after simplifying the Ampere circuital law, we get the mathematical equation like this. Now, let us call this as equation 1. Now, first let us find out the magnetic field at a point in the interior open space of the toroid. Look here, this is the interior open space. I have chosen one point P. So, likewise, here also I choose one point. Say for example, let P be the point in the interior open space. Now I have drawn already one Amperian loop L1 whose length is L1 and radius is nothing but equal to R1. So at any point in the interior open space, say for example at any point I write P in the interior open space, what will be the magnetic field along the path of the Amperian loop 1? Magnetic field along the path of Ampere loop 1. That means, say for example, all along this path you choose any point, either here or here or here. Using this equation 1, what I can write? I can write that as B1 I write. So magnetic field B1, instead of B I write B1 because this is the first Ampere loop, therefore I use the subscript 1. So B1 or B1 into L1. In place of small l, I write capital L1 because what is the length of the Ampere loop 1? It is L1. B1 L1 equal to mu naught IE. What is IE? Current enclosed by the Ampere loop 1. You just look into this Ampere loop 1. Is there any current passing through the area of this Ampere loop? That means passing through this area? No. So the Ampere loop 1 lies in the interior open space. So in the interior open space, no current is passing because current is passing through turn by turn. So turn by turn the current is passing like this. So current is passing through this turn, another turn, one more turn. But current is not passing through this Ampere loop 1. Therefore, no current is enclosed. Overall, you can also confirm this like this. You just look into these marks. None of the mark is lying inside this Ampere loop 1. So all these mark, this and also this represent the direction of flow of current. That means no current is passing through this Ampere loop 1. So therefore, what is IE? IE is equal to 0. So but IE equal to 0. Why? Since Ampere loop 1 does not enclose any current. Does not enclose any current. Then what happens to this equation now? This equation now becomes B1 L1 equal to mu naught into 0, which is equal to 0. So thereby now it is B1 L1 equal to 0, then finally B1 equal to 0. Because if you cross multiply L1 to the denominator of the right hand side, 0 divided by L1 once again turns out to be equal to 0. That means no magnetic field exists in the interior open space at any point, either at this point or at this point or at this point or at this point. To find does the magnetic field exist in the interior open space or not, what we have done? We have chosen the Ampere loop 1, then magnetic field all along the path of the Ampere loop 1 is found to be equal to 0. Next what I do means, I consider Ampere loop 3, then we come back to the Ampere loop 2. So at any point now, I write this as Q in the exterior open space. This is nothing but exterior open space. So if this is nothing but a toroid, if this is considered as a toroid, you can choose the point P either here or here or here or here, all around this toroid. So I consider that point. Say for example, as I have shown here, I choose one point Q here, either at this point or at this point or at this point. What's the magnetic field due to the Ampere loop 3? Find it out. See, whenever we want to make use of Ampere circuital law, there must be Ampere loop, because without considering Ampere loop, you cannot apply the Ampere circuital law, because the statement of Ampere circuital law says that line integral of magnetic field is equal to mu naught times the current enclosed within the Ampere loop. So loop is must in order to make use of this Ampere circuital law. So at any point Q in the exterior open space, magnetic field along the path of ampere in loop 2, ampere in loop 3. Use this equation and write once again. So in place of B, what I write? B3. So I consider the magnetic field with respect to this ampere in loop 3 as B3. Then instead of small l, I consider the total length of the ampere in loop. What is the total length? It is nothing but L3 mu naught IE. Now you check the current with respect to the ampere in loop 3. Look here. So this is one turn. This is another turn. Or more clearly, if you want to understand, so come back to this figure. This is turn 1. Okay. Turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. So that is what we have mentioned. Turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. For each loop, the current which is going into the plane cancels the current which is coming out of the plane, because the magnitude of the current going into the plane in a perpendicular direction is equal to the magnitude of the current which is coming out perpendicular to the plane. So since these two currents are equal in magnitude and directions are opposite, then with respect to each loop, or for each loop, what is the total current? The total current is nothing but equal to 0. So therefore, once again here, the current enclosed by the ampere in loop 3 turns out to be equal to 0. So let us write like this, but IE equal to 0, since ampere in loop 3, or we shall write this in a different way, IE equal to 0, since current for each loop cancel each other. Current for each loop cancels. Why it cancels? Because directions are opposite, magnitude is equal. So I equal to 0, since current for each loop cancels. So no current is enclosed. Then what happens to this equation now? B3 L3 becomes equal to mu naught into 0. So once again now entire thing becomes equal to 0. So therefore B3 and L3 is equal to 0. Again B3 is equal to 0. Then it is very evident from this equation that even the magnetic field with respect to ampere in loop 3 turns out to be equal to 0, though it encloses the whole toroid. Even though the entire toroid carrying current is present, still the magnetic field with respect to loop 3 becomes 0 because of cancellation of the current that is flowing through each turn. Then finally we are left with ampere in loop 2, which is inside the toroid. So this is the loop 2 of radius r and its length is taken as equal to L. Now let us find out the magnetic field. Now at any point inside the toroid, at any point inside the toroid, okay, magnetic field along the path of ampere in loop 2 is given by, I consider the magnetic field with respect to ampere in loop 2 as directly B2, directly B instead of considering B2. Okay, so B, and what is the length of this ampere in loop 2? It is nothing but equal to L. So B into L is equal to mu naught into IE. Now all that we need to do is, let us find the value of the current enclosed within the ampere in loop 2. So find out the value of IE and substitute, so that we get the magnetic field due to a toroid carrying current. Now let us find its value, that means value of IE. IE is given by, that means current enclosed within the Ampere loop 2 is given by IE equal to current flowing through each turn. What is the current flowing through each turn? Through each turn the current flowing is high, because the current I enters through one end of the toroid and it comes out through the other end of the toroid. So current flowing through each turn multiplied by total number of turns enclosed within the Ampere loop 2. What will be the total number of turns enclosed within the Ampere loop 2? It is nothing but N. But we have number of turns per unit length is given by total number of turns divided by total length of the Ampere loop. What is the total length of the Ampere loop 2? It is taken as L. And how many turns are enclosed in the entire toroid? N is the total turns enclosed. Then what does this N represent? N means what? Suppose if you consider from ear to ear this as 1 meter length, okay? So in this 1 meter length of the toroid, how many turns are enclosed means it is found out by dividing the total number of turns by the total length of the Ampere loop. So if I assume this as 1 meter length, then in this 1 meter length, how many turns are enclosed? So look here, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, like this, N turns are enclosed. Whereas capital N refers to total number of turns in the entire toroid. So if I cross multiply now, then what do I get? N equal to N into L. Now if I substitute that in this equation, then this equation becomes IE equal to, E stands for current enclosed, IE equal to, then I. For N I can substitute N into L. Now again substitute for IE in this equation. Let us call this as equation 2. So substituting for IE in equation 2, what do we get? Now equation 2 becomes B into L is equal to mu naught. IE is nothing but I into N into L. I into N into L. Now L and L gets cancelled. B equal to mu naught I into N. So this is the expression for the magnetic field at any point inside the toroid. So magnetic field exists only inside the toroid, not in the interior open space or not in the exterior open space, because we have shown that the magnetic field B3 at a point Q in the exterior open space is equal to 0. Similarly, we showed that the magnetic field at point P within the interior open space is also equal to 0. So field exists only inside the toroid and there is no contribution of magnetic field due to interior open space and also due to exterior open space. So this is nothing but once again the magnetic field equation due to a solenoid, because inside the solenoid at any point on its axis this will be the magnitude of the field. So same magnitude of field we get even for toroid also, because toroid is nothing but basically a solenoid. Only thing is it is bent in the form of a circular ring. So whatever field that exists inside the solenoid, same field exists inside the toroid. See, we know that the magnetic field at any point close to a straight and very long conductor is given by the equation B equal to mu naught over 2 pi I by R. That means if I consider a very long straight conductor and if current I is passed through it in any one of the direction, then by imagining one Ampere loop all around this conductor, then what's the magnetic field, say for example at the point P, and this magnetic field at the point P due to this long straight conductor is given by the equation B equal to mu naught or 2 pi I by R. What is R? R is nothing but the distance of the point at which magnetic field is required. And in fact, we derived this equation by making use of Ampere's circuital law, because we consider this as Ampere loop. At the point P, we choose small element of length dl, and at the point P, we consider the magnetic field B, which is tangential. Then, using Ampere's circuital law, by considering this as Ampere loop, the field at any point all around this conductor, that means if this is the straight conductor, either at this point or at this point or at this point or at this point, the field is found to be equal to this much. We also studied one more concept. What does that means? If you pass the current through a conductor, in the region around the conductor, a magnetic field is produced, which is known as magnetic effect of current. Suppose to this conductor, if I apply one more magnetic field, external magnetic field, that means magnetic field from outside, by some method, either by making use of bar magnet or by keeping one coil of wire by the side of it and passing the current through the coil also, we can produce the magnetic field. So, if one more magnetic field is applied, remember this is not the magnetic field due to the current, so this is external magnetic field. Now what happens? There will be interaction between the two fields. One field is external field and another field is the field produced due to the current. So all around this, one more magnetic field is produced. Okay. So let B be the magnetic field produced due to the current, whose direction can be determined by making use of right hand rule. If you consider this as a straight conductor, either at this point or at this point or at this point, what's the direction of magnetic field? It can be determined by making use of right hand clasp rule. So according to right hand clasp rule, now if BI is the magnetic field due to the current and if this is the external magnetic field, now there will be interaction between these two fields. Okay. Due to the interaction between these two fields, now what happens? A force acts on this conductor, mechanical force acts on this conductor, which is known as mechanical effect of current. And what is the force acting on this conductor? The force acting on the conductor can be determined by making use of the equation F equal to B into I into L into sin theta. Okay, what is this B here? B refers to external field here. So if I consider this simply as B, it is nothing but external field. I is the current, L is the length of the conductor. So we have derived this equation already. Just I am trying to brush up once again, because these two equations are used to derive the equation for the force acting between two straight parallel conductors. Here I have kept only one conductor in the external magnetic field and I passed the current so that some force will act on the conductor due to mechanical effect of current. As a result of this force, now the conductor is set into motion in any one of the direction. It may move either like this or in the backward direction depending upon the direction of current. How do we find the direction of the force acting on the straight conductor? The direction of the force acting on the straight conductor is determined by making use of Fleming's left hand rule. Right hand rule is used to find the direction of magnetic field due to the current flowing through the conductor. Fleming's left hand rule is used to find the direction of the force acting on a conductor when kept in an external magnetic field. Magnitude of the force acting on the conductor is given by this equation, whereas direction is determined using Fleming's left hand rule. Okay. Now what happens? Suppose if I keep two straight conductors, two straight long conductors, if they are kept parallel to each other, separated by very small distance, should not be separated by very large distance, should be separated by very small distance, then if I pass the current through both these conductors, either in the same direction, upwards or downwards. So pass the current in the same direction, either in the upward direction or in the downward direction, or pass the current in opposite direction. Through one conductor, let the current flow in upward direction, whereas through the another conductor, let the current flow in the downward direction. So whatever may be the direction of current, but certainly between the two conductors there exists force. Force will act between two conductors. What is the magnitude of the force? For the magnitude of the force that exists between two straight parallel conductors only after passing the current through both in any direction can be determined. Now let us consider two straight parallel conductors kept close to each other, separated by a very small distance in free space. Free space means either in air or in vacuum. So this is the conductor 1 whose length is nothing but equal to L. So let L be the length of the conductor. Now I pass the current through this conductor. Let I1 be the current. Due to this current, all around this conductor a magnetic field is produced. How do we find the direction of the magnetic field? By making use of right hand clasp rule or thumb rule. Now what I do means, I consider one magnetic line of force all around this. So this is nothing but the magnetic line of force. Now if I apply right hand rule, hold the conductor by means of your right hand. If the thumb finger represents the direction of current, current is flowing through this conductor in upward direction. Look here, it is flowing upward. Then fingers clasping gives the direction of magnetic field. So let us put arrow which indicates the clasping direction of the finger or the direction of magnetic field. But I want to find the direction of magnetic field at this point. Okay, say for example point P. Then what I do means, at this point I draw one tangent. So if I draw one tangent, the tangent gives the direction of magnetic field B1. Okay, so if the fingers are clasping like this, at this point I draw one tangent. So that tangent, how does it goes? It goes inwards, perpendicular to the plane of the figure. So B1 is directed inwards. What is this magnetic field now? Let us consider. L is the length of the conductor. Then I is the current flowing through the conductor I1. Then B1 is the magnetic field. Magnetic field due to the current I1 flowing through first conductor. Now what I do means, I keep now one more conductor in this magnetic field. But what's the magnitude of the magnetic field? Just now I explained according to Ampere's circuit law, magnetic field at the point P due to this conductor is given by B1 equal to mu naught over 2 pi I by R. That means I1, R means what? Distance of the point P from what? From the conductor. Now I consider this distance as equal to D. So I write this as D. This is the magnetic field that exists at the point P. Now what I do means, in this magnetic field I keep one more conductor. Look here, I rewrite this diagram once again. So I1 is the current flowing through the conductor 1. Now at the point P, say for example here I choose the point P. So at this point P, now I keep one more conductor. I represent the second conductor by means of dotted line. Okay, so I write the same thing here. Now what is the distance between these two conductors now? The distance between the two conductors is nothing but D. Let us pass the current through the second conductor. What is that current? Let I2 be the current. I write the same thing here. So let I2 be the current through the second conductor. Okay. Now, the second conductor is said to be placed in the magnetic field of what? First conductor. So already at this point, let us call this point as P. At the point P, there is one magnetic field. What is that magnetic field? That magnetic field is B1, which is directed inwards. So this field act inwards perpendicular to the plane of the figure. Okay. Now, due to this current, all around this conductor, one more magnetic field is set up. Say for example, one more magnetic field. What is that magnetic field? That field is nothing but B2. So, the field is nothing but B2. Now, there will be interaction between the field B1 and B2. Due to the interaction between these two fields, now a force acts on the second conductor. What is that force? Force acting on conductor 2 due to current I2. See, if you do not pass the current through the second conductor, no force will act on the second conductor. Second conductor, simply it rests in the magnetic field B1 of the first conductor. So it is only after passing the current, force act on conductor 2. Now what is that force? It is given by F equal to BIL sin theta. Okay. F means what? Force acting on which conductor? Second conductor. Due to the current flowing through what? Current flowing through first conductor. Then B means magnetic field. Now the second conductor is said to be placed in which magnetic field? Which is the external field to the conductor 2. B1 is the external field. So therefore, here you have to write B1. Then current means what? We are finding the force acting on the second conductor. Therefore, through second conductor, what is the current flowing? I2. So don't do the mistakes while writing the subscripts. B is 1, current is 2. What is the length of the second conductor? It is one and the same. Its length remains to be same, which is nothing but L. Now let us make the proper substitution. That means substitute for B1. What is B1? Mu naught over 2 pi I1 by D. Mu naught over 2 pi I1 by D into I2 L into sin 90. Theta equal to 90 degree. Because what is theta? Theta is the angle between the direction of magnetic field and the conductor. Now look here, the conductor 2 is kept like this, whereas magnetic field is directed inwards like this. If this is conductor 2 and this is magnetic field, so it is found that the conductor and the magnetic field both are perpendicular to each other. That means the angle between these two is 90 degree. Therefore, I write this as sin 90. Then what do we get? We get F21 is equal to mu naught over 2 pi, then I1 I2 divided by D into L, because sin 90 is nothing but equal to 1. So this is the force acting on which conductor? Acting on the second conductor. How do you find the direction of the force acting on the second conductor? The direction of the force F21 on the second conductor is determined by making use of Fleming's left hand rule. Apply the left hand rule. What does the left hand rule says? Forefinger represents the direction of magnetic field, which is directed inwards. Then current is flowing in which direction? Upward direction. So I reverse the hand like this, so that the middle finger represents the direction of current, which is flowing upwards. Stretch the thumb finger now. If you stretch the thumb finger, then the thumb finger gives the direction of force. That means on the second conductor, the force is acting towards which conductor? Towards first conductor. So let us write the direction of the force. So let us remove this. Then the direction of the force is like this, and it is nothing but force acting on second conductor due to the first conductor. Now we follow the same analogy. That means now what I do means I consider now the second conductor. Let us consider now the second conductor. I write one more figure. So this is nothing but the second conductor. Okay. Let us pass the current I2 through the second conductor. Then all around this conductor there will be magnetic field. Now determine the magnetic field at which point? At this point. Say for example, I consider this point as Q. If I consider this point as Q, apply now Fleming's right hand rule. Look here, thumb finger represents the direction of current, fingers curling is the direction of magnetic field. So I want to find the magnetic field at this point. So what I do, if the fingers are curling like this, then at this point, if I draw one tangent, the tangent drawn gives the direction of magnetic field B2. So this field is now directed outwards, perpendicular to the plane, whereas the field B1 due to the first conductor is said to be directed inwards. B1 is inwards, that means this field is inwards, whereas this field is outwards. Let us write the expression for this. Now B2 magnetic field due to the second conductor B2 is equal to, by making use of this equation, Ampere circuit law equation, and also from that we obtain the expression for magnetic field. I write first B2 equal to mu naught over 2 pi I by d. B means I write 2 because I am finding the field due to second conductor. I, current flowing through the second conductor. What is that current? The current flowing through the second conductor is I2. D is the distance between the point Q and the conductor. Now what I do means, in this external field B2, now I keep first conductor. So this is the first conductor in which I am keeping in the external field B2 of the second conductor. So the length of the first conductor and the second conductor are same. Okay. That means at a distance D from the second conductor, I kept the conductor 1. This is conductor 1 and this is conductor 2. Now is there any force acting on the conductor 1? No, because I have not yet passed the current. Unless you pass the current, no force will act on the first conductor. Now I pass the current through the first conductor, that is I1, in the same direction as that of I2. Now one more magnetic field is produced due to the current I1 as I explained here. So that magnetic field will be all around this conductor. Look here, let us consider that magnetic field as now B1. Let us remove this for time being. Now all around this conductor there will be one more magnetic field. That field is because of current I1. Okay. So B1 is the magnetic field which is directed inwards as I mentioned here. Now there will be interaction between the field B1 and the field B2. Remember, B2 is the external field to the first conductor and B2 is produced due to the current I2, whereas B1 is the magnetic field due to the current I1 flowing through the first conductor itself. These two fields interact. Now a mechanical force will act on this conductor. Now let us write one separate figure. So before that, let us mention its direction. Act as I mentioned here. So act perpendicular to the, act outwards, perpendicular to the plane of the figure. Okay. Now find out the force acting on the first conductor. Force acting on conductor 1 due to current I1. Okay. Equation F equal to BIL sin theta. Theta means once again 90 degree. Why 90 degree? Because this conductor and the magnetic field B2 are mutually perpendicular. This is conductor 1. This is field B2 due to this conductor. So I have taken theta is equal to 90 degree. But now we are finding the force on which conductor? Force on the conductor 1 due to the current flowing through the conductor 2. Then here B means, should I write B1 or B2? That is important. See, this conductor is kept in the external field. Which is the external field to this conductor? B2. So therefore here I have to write B2. Then current flowing through the first conductor, what is that current? I1. So B2 I1 L into sin 90. Now if I substitute for B2, what is B2 here? Mu naught over 2 pi I2 by D into I1 L sin 90 means 1. Okay. Now what do I get? Finally, F12 equal to mu naught over 2 pi I1 multiply and rearrange this I1 I2 divided by D into L. So force acting on the first conductor is equal to this. Again, by making use of Fleming's left hand rule, if I find the direction of the force acting on the first conductor, it will be towards the second conductor. So let us now make it clear. Okay. So what is the field now acting on this conductor? The field acting on this conductor is nothing but at the point Q is directed outwards. Field acting on the second conductor is directed inwards, B1. Now force acting on the conductor 2 is given by F21 and it is directed like this. Okay, F21. Similarly, what will be the force acting on the conductor 1? Apply left hand rule. First 3 fingers of your left hand. Now 4 fingers should represent the direction of field. Now the field is directed outwards like this. Whereas this is the conductor 1. Current through the conductor 1 is flowing in which direction? Upward direction. Therefore reverse your hand. This represents the current and this represents the magnetic field. Thumb finger is pointing all along this direction. That means the thumb finger is pointing towards which conductor? Towards the second conductor. Therefore the force acting on the first conductor is directed towards, this is F12, it is directed toward the second conductor. Magnitude of the force is same. You check out F21, F12. mu naught over 2 pi, mu naught over 2 pi, I1 I2 by d, I1 I2 by d into L. Magnitude of the force remains same, but the directions are opposite. That means I can write finally like this: F12 is equal to minus F21. Okay, so F12 equal to minus F21. Why minus sign? Because directions are opposite. Therefore, this is in accordance with the Newton's third law of motion, actional force and as well as reactional force. Now, here I have rewritten the same figure: conductor 1, conductor 2, B1 and B2, and force between the two conductor. Now, what is F12? F12 is equal to mu naught over 2 pi. Now, this equation can also be rewritten like this: F12 divided by L. Okay, so this is equal to now mu naught over 2 pi I1 I2 by d. Similarly, this equation can also be rewritten as F21 by L. That means all that I have done means I have cross multiplied L. I brought L from right hand side to the denominator of left hand side. Same thing I have done even for this equation also. This is equal to mu naught over 2 pi I1 I2 by d. See, what does it represent? It represents the force acting per unit length. So, this ratio represents the force acting per unit length. Force acting per unit length of the conductor. Okay. Now look here. Force acting on second conductor. That means this is the second conductor. On this conductor, what is the force acting? Due to the first conductor means this. Similarly, force acting on the first conductor due to the second conductor means this one. That means in between the two straight parallel conductors, at any point, either here or here or here or here, what the force acting means? This one. Magnitude wise same. Therefore, if two conductors are kept parallel to each other, either at this point or at this point or at this point, if you want to calculate the force, you can make use of either this equation or that equation. Both are one and the same. But if you want to find the force acting on unit length, that means only on 1 meter length, what is the force? 1 meter length, what is the force? Similarly, on 1 meter length of this conductor, what is the force? What is the force again? On 1 meter length. If I want to find, then I make use of this equation. So, I can write this equation finally as F equal to F12 by L, which is equal to F21 by L. That means F equal to mu naught over 2 pi I1 I2 by d. So, this is nothing but force per unit length of each, or force per unit length on each conductor. Okay. Now, there may be question like this. That means there may be question asking the definition of an ampere. That means define ampere. Ampere can be defined in different ways, but with respect to this concept, that means with respect to this equation, how do we define ampere? First, what I do means I assume the current flowing through each conductor as equal to 1 ampere. And again, current flowing through this conductor also is equal to 1 ampere. First, I assume the current through each conductor as equal to 1 ampere. Then I define what is meant by this 1 ampere. And now if the distance of separation between the two conductors is 1 meter, then what happens to this equation now? This equation now becomes, look here, F equal to this equation. What's the value of mu naught? Mu naught value is 4 pi into 10 to the power of minus 7 divided by 2 pi. Okay, I1 I2 by d. I1 is 1, I2 is also 1, d is also 1. Then what do we get? So we get the value like this. If we simplify, then pi and pi gets cancelled, 2 ones are 2 twos are. So F is equal to 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7 Newton per meter, not only Newton, because F is nothing but force by length. So force means Newton, length means meter. When meter goes to the numerator, it becomes per meter. This means current flowing through each conductor is said to be 1 ampere. Current flowing through each conductor is said to be 1 ampere if a force of 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7 Newton, if a force of 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7 Newton acts on every unit length. Suppose if this is 1 meter length, on this how much of force should act? On this unit length, this is the amount of force that should act. Again, if I consider this as equal to 1 meter length, then what should be the magnitude of the force acting on this 1 meter length? It should be equal to this. Again, if you take once again unit length here 1 meter, again unit length 1 meter, again on this unit length the amount of force that should act is equal to how much? 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7. If this amount of force act, then the current flowing through each conductor is said to be equal to 1 ampere, provided if the two conductors are kept separated by a distance of 1 meter in free space, that means either in vacuum or in air. So this is how we define ampere. So let us write ampere. 1 ampere is defined as the current through each conductor when a force of how much? 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7 Newton act on every unit length of each conductor, kept separated by a distance of 1 meter, apart in free space. Okay, so this amount of force should act 2 into 10 to the power of minus 7 Newton on every unit length. Okay, so that's why I have not written here per meter, because I have mentioned that here on every unit length. Then only current through each conductor is said to be equal to 1 ampere. Because there is one more way of defining ampere by making use of Ohm's law. Look here, this is the resistor or a conductor of resistance 1 ohm. Suppose between the two ends of the conductor, if the potential difference maintained is equal to 1 volt. Now the current flowing through this conductor is said to be 1 ampere. How can you say that the current flowing through this conductor is said to be 1 ampere? Use Ohm's law. According to Ohm's law, we have V equal to I into R. What is V? 1 volt. I multiplied by R, 1. I into 1 means 1. So I equal to 1 ampere. So using Ohm's law also we can define 1 ampere. How? Current flowing through a conductor or a resistor is said to be 1 ampere, provided if the resistance of that conductor is equal to 1 ohm whose ends are maintained at a potential difference of 1 volt. But when we come across the question of defining ampere with respect to the force between two straight parallel conductors, then we have to define that in this manner itself. Should not use this. Suppose if we come across the question of defining ampere with respect to the concept of Ohm's law, then we have to make use of this equation to define 1 ampere. So there is a difference of defining 1 ampere of current. It all depends upon the concept, whether we are making use of Ohm's law concept or whether we are making use of force between two straight parallel conductors. So just by looking into the question, we have to define 1 ampere carefully. Thank you.